It is never too early to get started with those end of the year holiday cards. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make 9 Christmas cards in a flash with the brand new July 2026 SheetLoad of Cards. Hello crafty friends, my name's Alicia, but you can call me Crafty Al. And welcome, or perhaps welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. Yesterday I debuted the brand new July 2026 SheetLoad of Cards and told you how you can download the free printable. If you don't yet have this, make sure to check out the description box below for a link. If you do have it printed out, I'm going to show you today how I put together my first set, and I do have some great tips and tricks along the way. Also today, my creative team will be joining me in sharing their first sets. So once you're done here, make sure to see what they have created. It is super quick and easy. You can use a monthly playlist, which is linked in the description box below, and I also have it as an end card at the end of the video. I know each and every one of my team members would love for you to stop by, see what they created, and leave them some love. As I get into today's process, I will be telling you all about the products and tools I'm using, but as always, if I ever leave you with any questions, you can leave those in that comment section below, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Let's get crafty! The printable suggests having 2 sets of the same 3 papers. Like I do here, I chose 6 pieces from Honeybee Stamp's Vintage Holiday Collection. But if you want to pick out 2 different sets of 3, like here I have trios from different paper collections, keep in mind that if you can't mix and match them together, you will get 1 less card, so you'll only get 8 total. Another option, if you want a wider variety of cards, is to pick 6 papers from the same collection that you are able to mix and match them all together. I'm going to start today's process video by showing you how to cut your pattern papers. If there is a specific orientation you are going for, make sure to keep that in mind with your first cut. For instance, on this piece of wood grain paper, I know that I want on the final cards for the boards to be vertical. So when I make that first cut, I want the paper sitting the way I want it on the final card, and I cut it to 5 1/4 inches wide. For now, I'm going to set that strip to the side, and then I'm going to rotate the rest of my pattern paper and cut it into 3 sections that are 2 inches tall. Now I'm going to bring back in that 3/4 inch wide strip and cut it into 3 sections as well. I do have a little secret for you. I actually ended up cutting those piece B's, the top 2 just a little bit taller than 2 inches, because that bottom piece B is actually a scrap or something you can use to decorate the inside of your cards. I cut those top 2 pieces a little bit taller just so I know later that it will fill the entire cardstock 1 or CS1 piece. If you don't want to worry about the pattern paper piece B's being tall enough to fill CS1, there is also another way you could cut your pattern paper, and I'm showing you with this piece here. Instead of cutting off that 3/4 of an inch wide strip first, you can rotate your piece of pattern paper, cut it into the 3 sections that are 2 inches tall, and then rotate each of those sitting back the same way and cut your pattern paper piece A down to 5 1/4 inches wide, which will leave you with the correct piece left over for pattern paper B. I did use the first method to cut my remaining 4 sheets of pattern paper, and I know that I'm throwing a lot of dimensions and sizes at you, but don't forget you don't need to remember these or write them down. You can visit yesterday's debut video to download the free printable so you can have the instructions right there in front of you. Next up for cutting is CS1, which is 1 sheet of cardstock that will end up being where you stamp your image or sentiment. Now, if you want to do something different for this shape, maybe replace it with some ephemera, make SheetLoad your jumping off point. For this set, I am going to follow the instructions on the printable, so I take my 1 sheet of white cardstock and start by cutting it into 3 columns that are 3 1/4 inches wide. There is some left over at the end, and later I'll show you how I used all of that up. Once those are cut, I rotate each of those columns and cut them into 3 pieces that are 2 inches tall. Now, full disclosure, you could cut 2 of these and get 4 out of each one and just 1 from that last piece, but I'm just showing you how to cut them per the instructions to make it easy. Next up for cutting is CS2, which will be the mats for the CS1 piece. For my cards, I chose craft because I thought it went with the vintage feel of the pattern papers. This gets pretty much cut in the same way as CS1, but these are just a little bit wider and taller. Once this is cut, I will have 9 mats that are 3.5 inches wide by 2.25 inches tall. Finally, for cutting are the card bases, which you will want 5 sheets of coordinating cardstock that you're going to cut and fold in half. Now this will get you 10 card bases, which means you'll have 1 left over for a future project. I am again using craft cardstock to go with the mat we just cut and the feel of those pattern papers. Once you're done cutting, you could fold these in half by hand, but I do like to bring in my mini Scor-Buddy so I can get a nice crisp fold on each of the card bases. Normally this would be the point where I mix and match the pattern papers for the final cards, but I do want to do a couple different steps before I do that. I'm going to start by adding pattern paper piece B to CS1. If you follow the sketch, you are going to place this piece about 1/8 of an inch from the left of CS1. You can do that, or you can do it right up against the edge. That is up to you. For this first set, I am going to follow the sketch, so you'll see here where I place that, and there is just a little bit of overhang at the top that you will see me cut off later. To adhere the rest of these together, I brought in one of my favorite helper hacks, and that is my mini Scor-Buddy. And what I do is I have that ledge at the bottom help me align the pattern paper with the edge of the cardstock. If you don't have this tool but you want to try a similar hack, look for something in your tool stash that has a ledge, maybe a paper trimmer or a stamp positioner. Once those were all adhered together, I brought in a pair of scissors and quickly snipped off the overhang. Now it's time to add these to their mat, and to do that, I just added adhesive to the back and centered it on the CS2 cardstock. While I work on that, I would love to know, what theme are you going to make your first set of July 2026 Sheetload of Cards? Let me know down in that comment section below. Once those were all adhered together, it was time to put together my card kits, or the pieces that will be on each of the final cards. You can slow this portion down if you want to follow along with me, but basically I laid out all 6 of pattern A, and then I put 3 of pattern B and 3 of pattern C with it. Then at this point, I'm going to go back, and whichever pattern was not included in each of those card kits. So on the top row, that's kind of the gingham look, I can't remember what that's called, but then I put those with it. Then on the bottom row, I match up the focal points that have the busier pattern paper, or the one with the presents and the flowers on it. For the remaining 3 cards, I just match up the pieces that I have left. Now it's time to start assembly, which means the 2 pattern paper A's that go on the front of the card will be placed right next to each other with an even border all the way around. I'm going to show you 2 different ways you can achieve this, and then you can decide to use whichever one works best for you. The first way is to add adhesive to the back of the top piece and place that with an even border, or 1/8 of an inch border, on the top, left, and right. Then you're going to add the same adhesive to the second piece, place it right up against that first one, and just kind of hope that your borders end up looking even in the end. And I do have to say that worked out pretty well for this first one. One way to make these cards your own would be to rotate the card base, but I am just going to go by the sketch, and right now, because my focal point isn't ready, I'm just going to set those 2 pieces to the side. The second way to get the card base ready is to set out your two pattern paper A's like they will lay on the card and then flip them upside down. Then take one or two pieces of Scotch tape and adhere those two pieces together. Now you have a single piece that you can add adhesive to and place on the card front. I did just use my Scotch removable tape on my pieces because that's what I have handy here on my desk, and once they're on the card front it won't come apart anyway. Either of these methods will work. Let me know in the comment section below if you think of something different or which way you think you'll adhere your pieces to the front. For the rest of mine, I did go ahead and tape the two pieces together. It was a little quicker and used a little bit less adhesive because I didn't have to go down that center twice. While I work on putting some more of the card fronts together, I wanted to remind you that if you participated in collecting the secret words for my recent Surprise Advent live stream series, that recap and giveaway rules video went live last night on my channel, so July 1st, 2026, so make sure if you haven't seen that yet that you check it out. I will link the video in the description box below. Now it's time to get the sentiment added to the focal point, and for this I'm using a Brutus Monroe stamp set and using one of the Merry Christmas stamps from it. I'm stamping this with green tea ink because I thought it went well with some of the greens in the pattern paper. You notice I am setting it up in my MISTI because I can just figure out where the stamp needs to go once and then repeat the steps for the remaining 8 focal points. So far my cards are pretty flat, so I wanted to pop up the sentiments, and to do that I brought in those white cardstock scraps from earlier as well as a few more from my stash, and I cut 36 pieces that are about 3 inches wide by a ½ inch tall. Then I adhered 2 sets of 2 together and placed these onto the back of one of the sentiment pieces. This allows me to use up some scraps that might have been headed for the recycle bin, and it also adds some cheap dimension to the cards. Let me know in the comment section below what are some hacks you use for your scraps or to pop pieces up on your cards. Not only is this very economical and it uses up the scraps, but it's also going to keep these cards flat enough to go through the mail with a standard stamp. Once all those strips have been added to the sentiments, I'm now going to get these placed onto their card fronts. For this, I am going to use liquid glue, so I have some wiggle time to get these as straight and as centered as possible. Sometimes with a wider border like that, I struggle with that a bit. Let me know if it's the same for you in that comment section below. Although I don't show the process on camera, I did decorate the inside by cutting up some pieces of white cardstock to 5 inches wide by 3 3/4 inches tall, and then I used those final pattern paper piece B's to decorate the inside, and you will see that at the end of the video. That makes this a no pattern paper scraps template, and who doesn't love that? To finish off the cards, I added 5 gold glitter dots to each of the focal points. Not only do these add a little extra shine, but they're nice and flat for mailing. And here are some close-up looks at the finished cards. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I put together my first set of cards using the July 2026 sheetload of cards and got a few tips along the way. If you did, as always, a thumbs up is appreciated, and leave your favorite tip or trick down in that comment section below. Now don't forget to see what everyone else on the team created by using the playlist linked in the description box or the end card here in just a few seconds. Until my next video, I hope you're all having a crafty day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of the video. I hope now you'll consider clicking on one of the videos or playlists I have linked above. And if you are interested in any of the products or tools I used in today's video, I do have some links in the description box below.